Welcome everyone to Quiz the Music Man. I'm Tony Underwood, I'm the Music Man, and we've got kind of an interesting show tonight for you, coming to you live from Central Florida. It's a little cool here. I know people up north don't think it's very cool, but to us right now it's a little cool here. Last little cool break before spring starts showing up. So what's coming up? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about some interesting developments in music in general. And then we're going to kind of, kind of yin-yang and right and left and up and down and those kind of things. It's called dialectic. And what it means is when you talk about something in a certain way, you also can talk about it in the negative way or the opposite way. And it kind of can make some sense. I know that's kind of a roundabout way, but you'll understand a little more as we go. And we have this as just a voice podcast, and also I'm recording the video. So if I say, look here and see this, if you're just listening to the podcast, you can ignore that. This does show up on my YouTube channel, Tonyunderwoodmusic, as well. So let's talk a little bit about, and I think it has a lot to do with the pandemic, but a lot of people at home, the sales of electric guitars are up. There had been about a 23% drop in electric and acoustic guitar sales over the last several years, but now they're up. It was about 1.25 million guitars sold this last year. That's up from 1 million a couple of years before. And the acoustic guitar is probably about close to that as well. And that doesn't account a lot of used guitars. There's probably 5 or 6 times as many used guitars. And a lot of people are finding that learning music is a great thing in these times. And it's something that you can tell people, but when a person isn't ready to receive, it doesn't really matter what you tell them and who you are or anything like that. So it's always interesting to me when people get very excited and that they've been able to do something with music. That's kind of my business. I teach music, so I've seen that. I perform. I know about that. It's hard to let people know. They'll always fall back onto a set thing that they think people want to hear, that they're going to go into these fields, which are all good. Every field has its own good things, but they all have their bad things too. And music is a great field to go into. The starving musician, you could just take musician out. That's just a person that doesn't have the tools or the knowledge to make some money and make a living off what they're doing, which you can definitely do. So over $8 billion industry just in sales of instruments. So we'll get into some other things as well as we go. But I wanted to lead that off because I think that's pretty important, that music, guitar sales have rebounded, as probably has some other instruments and things, especially in these times when a lot of people are not working maybe, or having to work from home, or just in home a lot, shut in. So because I think until you've experienced it, it's hard to explain the value of learning an instrument or playing music. It's something that I see instructors and professionals, they really look for any bit of time they can get to practice, to look at music. It doesn't consume their life, but they love it so much, and it's so fulfilling. And most people that really like it, they'll do it until they drop. You can do it till, if you live to be 100, up to that day, you pretty much can be involved in performing or creating music. You might have to make some changes, but you can do it. And I find a lot of people punish themselves by staying away from it. I have people that played brilliantly when they were younger, but they don't play anymore. I just can't find the time. Well, that's just code for I'm scared of it. I don't feel I'm worthy to enjoy myself. I don't feel I'm worthy to do those things. And I think a lot of times, the people of the older generation, which I'm one of, now I think we failed a lot of people because other countries and cultures, man, they just play music like crazy. You can probably see up here, this little item, a ukulele. I don't know if this is in tune. Very easy to learn. Just a couple chords. It's light. This is a little more expensive one. This costs maybe about $100. But you can get them for $20. They sound great. They play great. Ukulele. It kind of looks like a guitar. It's just tiny. You can listen to some people playing that, and it just is infectious. It's easy to learn. That's something that people could really learn and transfer that knowledge to another instrument later if they wanted to. So if you're thinking about buying an instrument and starting lessons, do it. There's lots of good people out there giving lessons. If you'll contact the Underwood School, you can go to the Facebook page or go to my YouTube channel, message me. I'm going to be presenting an online series of lessons, video lessons, and I'm going to also do Zoom calls and be there with you if you'd like to join in that. That's going to be put up within the next week or two. Watch for that. Lots of other things out there too, but I would urge you to go ahead and learn some music. Get you a guitar, borrow a guitar, buy a $20 ukulele. Just go on Amazon, it's okay. Or go into a guitar shop and play a bunch of guitars and just strum them. See which one talks to you and take it home. What's on the top Billboard is really interesting. You always hear what songs are the best and to write and to play. And the #1 song is Driver's License, Olivia Rodrigo. It's just a real beautiful, poignant song. I remember being that age. And I remember when I first got my car, back then I think it was a little more of a desire. A lot of people today get taken places, but for me it was either your feet, the bus, or a bicycle. And we lived out in a rural area, so getting my driver's license was the thing, man. I was free. I was an adult at that point because I had freedom. I could go places, and the words of this song and the poignant way she sings it, it's really just brings back lots of memories for me, and I know for a lot of people, touches them and speaks to them because they don't have their license yet, or maybe they just gotten it. So a beautiful song, great job by her. And so much different than the next. #2 is Up by Cardi B. And then the third one is Go Crazy by Chris Brown and Young Thug. Those are probably the three songs that are the most different. #4, this is the Billboard Hot 100, is Ariana Grande, 34 and 35. And then to round out the top 5 is Blinding Lights by The Weeknd. That's been out a while. 64 weeks on the chart, and it's still #5. And he's quite the character. If you saw his Super Bowl presentation and the things that have been going on, it's kind of interesting. Even more interesting, the #6 song is by The Weeknd. Again, it's called Save Your Tears. So a lot of different ones. Well, we'll just do the top 10. 7 is Mood, featuring, it's 24 Golden. Calling My Phone is #8, Little TJ featuring 6 Lack or Black, I don't know how they pronounce that. Calling My Phone. #9 is Positions, Ariana Grande again. And #10 is Levitating, Dua Lipa featuring DaBaby. So there you go. A lot of other things going on in there. So let's talk a little bit today. People have asked me different things. A lot of people say they are at a crossroads and they're not sure if they should do what they love or love what they do. And it's kind of like the old song, if you can't be with the one you love, honey, love the one you're with. That's a thought that goes through a lot of, you find it in a lot of groups that start, both religious and secular, when they're trying to build up their following. They do that by just pick somebody and go for it. That's interesting though. Should you look for what makes you passionate and then do that, or should you just do something and find the passion in it? And the answer is yes. Again, with the dialectic, what does that mean? Well, that is a double-edged sword, a two-pronged fork, so to speak. Yes, you should definitely have passion for what you do, and you definitely should do what's your passion. But who's to say if which comes first? And I think the person is you, because we get locked in so early. These days they want freshmen in high school to pick a major. And I understand that, but in some respects I don't, because we need to have a variety of things that we've experienced. What I tell my performers, and we get this with musicians and dancers and actors. Musicians, it's more because you're picking an instrument, and that really has a big effect on where you're going. But we get kids in that want to learn piano, so they come in, they're 9, 10, they start. They're great learners, they do very well, they become great musicians, but after a year or two, I want to do something else. And of course that makes the parents upset, because they think it should be just a little like stacking blocks. But sometimes we get them to say, well, let them maybe look at something else, and your musical knowledge transfers over. So they go over to guitar and they play that. Again, they're really excited and they play that for a while. Then they get a little disappointed and they leave. And here's the reason: because you really have to, do something that speaks to you, and you have to speak to it. And you can't make that decision on a whim or at the last minute. Because you see, unfortunately in our school systems, and I give the teachers such great confidence, and I really think they do a great job, but it's a tough job to be one music teacher in an elementary school. I mean, I think you should have 10. If you have 10 science teachers or 10 fourth grade teachers, you need a lot of music teachers, because there's a lot to it. And most of what they end up having to do, it would be just like me being a math teacher. And all the kids do is can you imagine one math teacher in an elementary school, and you see them once a week, and what do? You jump around singing 2 + 2 is 4, or playing, ring toss to add numbers together. You're never really going to get much out of it. We at least need a dedicated class to the arts, to the performing arts. Because even in elementary school, a child should have a month or 2 to play a trumpet or some type of brass instrument. They actually have these plastic brass instruments that are kind of a in-between instrument. There's been many of them throughout history, but it's a small instrument. It only costs about $100, so it's cost effective. And the mouthpieces are very cheap, and they have a woodwind one as well, so you can play. But it would be ideal for a student to come in and over the 4 or 5 years of elementary school have played a piano, for several months out of the year, played a guitar, ukulele maybe, a brass instrument, a reed instrument, some percussion, worked with some technology and things. Then they get an idea, something will strike them, they'll love it, they'll pick it up. And you've seen the kid that just picks up a trumpet and just plays and plays and plays. I have to think somebody like Wynton Marsalis or somebody like that was like that they got a trumpet when they were 4 or 5 and just played. I've seen them. The problem is a lot of parts, the parents really don't have the knowledge. They don't understand that a well-versed musician that really likes to play can make good money, and in fact can out-earn just about anybody, because nobody's out-earning Beyonce. I mean, hedge fund people and stuff like that, but that's really, you can't go to school for that. And there's only 100 of those in the world. There's thousands and hundreds of thousands of musicians earning good money. So I think they don't get a chance to really find out what's out there. So they spend a lot of their time feeding their love of music without really getting down to what they can do. So what do I suggest with music and with life in general is try to do as many things as you can. Look into some stuff. I knew a fellow who loved just doing landscaping. He loved taking an overgrown lot and cutting all the trees down. And he had a machete he had since he was young, and he would go to a job site. Somebody would call him his company, and he owned the company. He had many people working for him. Very young too. He would go to each one. He didn't have anybody looking at the sites. He would go himself, and he'd roll out of the truck. He would immediately start cutting things down with his machete. Usually he'd get there a little bit early so he could walk the property and see what it's like. And I went with him a couple of times, and some of the owners would pull up, and he's got a big paths cut and things. And the guy would be like, well, what are you doing? And he said, well, I just wanted to see what was going on. And you could just tell he loved this doing. He would make a deal with the guy, and the guys would leave, and he would just stay there for half an hour, cutting stuff down, waiting for his workers to come up, and he would go over everything with them. He'd cut down stuff himself. He just loved it. So that's the passion you want to find or develop. And it can be either develop or found. And you can do that for 5 years and do something else. I mean, it's not a crime to be successful at something. You know, think of some people in the past that have, they call them one-hit wonders. A musician named Freddie Fender played, I think the song was Wasted Days and Wasted Nights and Red Sails in the Sunset. And he wrote the one song, Wasted Days and Wasted Nights. And he had a good career, but he wasn't really well known. He was interviewed, and he said, that one song changed my life, because that song for my whole life has made it so I have my own house to live in, and I don't have to worry about how it's going to be paid. And every night when I eat my pinto beans, I have a little steak with it and a nice salad. He said, and I've raised a family, and I've been able to go and perform for thousands of people as much as I wanted to. So, you can be Freddie Fender for a few years and then go do something else. Now, I know parents don't like to hear that, but it is the truth. You can do that. Some people are just built. Now, some people just want to go in and take 3 blocks and glue them together, and then next 3 blocks combined. They will do that their whole career. That's great. But some people don't connect with that. So I would say, don't be afraid to switch. And how do you make it in this world? Well, you have to learn about finances. I'm not really going to go into that, and I'm not going to say I'm a super fly financial person. But I'll tell you what when I was very young, I grew up on my own. I saved 50% of everything I made, gross. So if I got $100 to mow a lawn, I would put $50 in the bank. If I got $20 to paint a fence, I put $10 in the bank. If people sent me $20 for my birthday, which we didn't get $20, we would get $5. Not many of those. $250 I would put in the bank. And I lived off what was left, which meant I paid any taxes I had to do, I would pay it out of that what was left, and I lived off of it. Now, how can you do that? Well, if you have to live in somebody's, live in their extra room, live in their garage, live in the shed out back, live in a little, buy you a little camper van and pull it out back. Especially if you want to be a performing artist, do your schoolwork, do your online school. If your parents want you to pay for you to go to school and say you're absolutely going to school, say, well, I'll make a deal with you. Let me go to school, and when I get my degree, pay for me for a year to go and do these other things. And in the meantime, summer in LA and New York or Chicago, and immerse yourself in your art, or take classes and become good at it, and go start trying to sell that art and get some money for yourself. Because what happens with an artist, they have a very negative view of themselves sometimes, and that's something you need to work on. Don't think, just do. Go and do it. If you can do it, do it. Ask. There's a story of a man who went and asked for outrageous things. He would go and do that 10 times a day. He would go into a submarine shop and say, can I have a sub for free? And they'd say no. Say, well, can I have something for free? Most of the time they'd give him something. Or they'd say, well, if you buy a sub, I'll give you a free soda. Or here, I've got a coupon for half off. A lot of times they'd say no. And he first started to do that 10 times, and then he started to get 10 no's. One day, you know, he got 100 things for free before he got to 10 no's. There's the story of the man who took a paperclip and bartered and ended up with a house. But you see, you're honing your skills to work with people. A lot of times people will buy into your story and not buy into it. So maybe say, engage with your story and believe in your story, and they'll help you out. Look at the comedians. There are comedians, and I've seen them. Let's say that they go on stage and bomb. It's really nothing to them. They say, "Oh yeah, I bombed." Now, me personally, it would really crush me to go on stage and people heckle me and stuff. That's just, you know, that's just the kind of performer I am. I've never really tried the comedy stuff. Plus, I'm more funny telling a joke than the joke is, because I'm awful at it. But I've always said one day when I am retired from all the other fun things I love to do, I'm going to practice being a comedian just to do it. You know, you will not conquer your emotions when you're out there. You'll learn to perform and present and provide and do things in spite of them. So just go do them. You can find something to do and then let your passion develop. Let's look at music. A lot of people get into music and they think it's one thing and it's not, but they still really like it. I mean, people practice on their own. I've known people that have played for years just for themselves. But listen to this. Let's say what you can do with music. You can perform, you can create, you can just write music. You can put on the events for musicians. Maybe you like that and like to be around music. You can be a sound tech, a talent scout, a music lawyer, a music costumer, a theater set builder, a professional development to help people develop themselves professionally. You can get into finances for musicians. Maybe you get into finances and love it. How for them to provide for themselves in the future. Performing, or you can branch out to other performing artists and do these things. Or entrepreneurs. Performing artists and entrepreneurs are the same. Some don't get anywhere because they don't do the work. This is 80% work. It's what happens is we get excited about something, we start doing it, the good part wears off, and we want to get excited again about something else. And I do this too, everybody does it, but you have to stay with what you're doing, just grind it out. Usually when I finish something good, at the end I've said, boy, this is awful, and the things I've done really aren't as good as I can do, but I'm not going to go back and redo them. I'm just going to get it packaged and get it out. And you'll find that that's sometimes the best stuff out there because you're too close to it. You know, this works with relationships. Sometimes you find a love and develop a life. Sometimes you find a partner and develop a love. I mean, that's kind of up to you. It's your definitions. But I will say one of the things to help you through, and it's one of the things I teach in music, and it's the toughest thing, even good instructors forget it, is everything you do, you want to break down. And in music, you learn to read music, and it's actually very simple, but people make it difficult. And I have to say, reading music for me and the theory was not easy when I went to college and took it, but it was because I was trying to just grab the ball and run with it. And you have to do the work. And you have to do the work slowly and steadily and little by little, almost in a thoughtless manner. So in other words, if you look at a piece of music, you have to find your first note and play it. And you have to identify it. What's the letter name of that note? How do you play it on your instrument? And then play it. And then you go to the next note. You do the same thing. And you say, well, I'll go from that note to that note. And you do that. But you don't just do it once and move on. You do it over and over and over again for maybe 50, 100, 200 times. And you do that 2 or 3 times a week, every time you practice for 5 or 10 minutes. In fact, what I usually do is a certain set of physical skills can be tiring. So you break it down and you do one part of it for a while until you get tired and you do the other. With piano, I would learn one hand of the notes and then learn the other hand when the one hand got tired. And I would, after you get to a point, I would just grab a handful of notes. In other words, the 5 notes coming up, if I could put a finger on each of them, I would learn that, and over and over and over. Now you might think this is not the way you learn piano because you've seen people put music up and just read it. Well, that skill develops, and that skill in itself is its own skill. There is a stopping point. Most people specialize. You'll see someone like at Disney doing auditions, they're playing the piano. You could put just about any accompaniment in front of them, they're going to play it. But you have to understand, these people have for years played the same music over and over again. They've worked on reading it after they've learned how to play piano. So that's not a skill you develop at first. That's a skill you develop later. And it does take many years and over and over. People get into this 7,000 hours or 10,000 hours or 7 years. And it's true, it can take that long to learn something, but it doesn't have to. You can learn things very slowly, note to note. You learn a measure at a time over and over, and then you learn another measure. Whatever your, however many notes at a time you can learn. At first, you just do 1 to 2, then learn 3, then learn 2 to 3, then learn 1 to 2 to 3, then learn 4. But once you get to where you can learn a couple notes at a time or 3 notes, you learn 3 notes, and then you learn another 3 notes. And then you take the last note of that first 3 and the first note of that second 3 and go back and forth between them. Then you chain them together. And you do that, and as you get better, your skill of learning increases. So you might be able to play 8 or 10 notes at sight and then learn them really quick and so forth. And you see, then you're developing that sight reading skill. But I'll tell you something, you don't need it, because you can get to where if you do that for a year or two, pretty much the music you're playing, you can look at something for a couple minutes and then play it. And then pretty soon, if you slow down and work on sight reading skills, you'll get to where you can sight read things as well. So those are just some kind of anecdotes and talking about, you know, should I love what I'm doing or should I do what I love? And the answer is yes. It can be both. So play on, learn yourself a guitar, learn yourself piano, do something good in this life, talk to the people around you, hang around people you want to be like. And if the people you're hanging around are negative and aren't positive for you, aren't like your cheerleader, if they're negative, get you some new people. And if it's your family and you can't leave, just learn to, you were a teenager once, roll your eyes back in your head and shake your head, yeah, and blot it out and go on about your business. So I believe in you, and you should be proud of yourself of your accomplishments. So we'll see you next week with another round of answering questions and talking about music a little bit. This is Tony Underwood, the Music Man, signing off.